case. So what I'm going to cover off is the first way of being, which is being present. So what is being present? When you look at being present, there's a quote up there, which is from William James, and he says, compared to what we ought to be, we are only half awake. And what does that mean? It means that we do not actually use all of what we've been given. We only actually use some of our talents and our abilities, etc. So our fires are damped, our drafts are checked, is what William James says. But the part that being present is about is that it is in your hands as to how much of your ability, your talent, and the hard work that you put in, because you are your only weapon of mass construction. You are the one that can make it happen. And there are two key parts to being present. The first one is human beings versus human doings. And I think we spoke about this in our first webinar, where we actually said we are called human beings, not human doings. And there's a reason for that, because it is about first understanding who you are before what you do. And if you look at the challenge, you've got success and you've got happiness. And they're slightly different things. Success, in terms of life is really a little bit more about competition. It's a zero-sum game. It's what you do to get ahead. But happiness is a very different construct. It is about actually flourishing. And while you might use some of the same mechanisms to get both, they are actually quite different. So that's one of the points I want to make. And the second one is about reclaiming the now. In this world, especially in an eye-connected world, and I think I spoke about it last time in terms of what happens in 1 minute on the internet. We're sending 180 million emails, 1 million people logging in to Facebook, 1.4 million swipes on Twitter. So we're talking about a world where things are hitting us all the time, hitting our senses. So how do we reclaim the now? And there are three key parts to it. One is letting be. What does that mean? It means that not riding up and down with every wave. The second one is letting go. So it's keeping out, and letting go of some of the things that we constantly bring into our working memory. And the last one, of course, is actually letting in the good stuff. So that's the first part of being present. The second part, it's not the second part, it's actually really what being present is about, is two things, is developing yourself and excelling at work. So the first one is really understanding who you are. And as I said before, we are the best weapons of mass construction for ourselves. So anybody who can make us more successful and more happy is us. So important then to understand each of us, so understand yourself. And to understand yourself, we're talking about understanding your extended personality, which is three key parts. The first one is the big 5 personality traits, which is your genetics, which is really the outline of your personality, right? Which is what you're given, you're born with. The second one is characteristic adaptations, which is the filled in to the outline. So you've got an outline with your personality traits. Your life and your living is what fills it in. This is your goals, your mechanisms, all of those things. And finally, and very importantly, is your self-consciously created life story, because all together they make up your personality. It's not just your genetics, not just your adaptations, it's also your life story, how you see yourself. And so that's the first bit, about knowing who you are. But once you know who you are, then how do you deploy that to become more successful, to become happier? And that's where we look at the second part, which is excelling at work. So the first part of that is about the journey is as important as the destination. We say that all the time. That's, it's a progress principle. It's not just the end, but the way getting there as well. And this is where concepts like flow and vital engagement come in, being in the zone, enjoyed absorption, loving what you do. I think that's one big part of it. The second one is really to understand what performance is about in organizations and as individuals as well, but in organizations. Performance is motivation times ability
times the environment.
Times the environment. Sorry, I just had a blank there. Sorry, motivation times ability times the environment. Now, you can have the ability, you can have a great environment to work in, but if you're not motivated, it turns to nothing, because the equation we have up there, it's a multiplier. So if 1 is 0, then it's a 0. So intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation is very important. And people, one of the things we've covered off quite extensively in the book is about gamification, the gaming sector. Why is it so successful, and what have they actually got right? What they have got right is the fact that you can actually drive performance by both intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So that is really about being present.